Bikes can be a lot of fun and some great exercise, but sometimes they can be a little bit of a challenge to travel with, unless you have a pickup truck. But in my case, I have a big toolbox in the back of my bed, and in some cases the newer trucks have really compact beds, and that makes just getting it in the back a challenge itself. And of course, I've seen some people hang their bikes over their tailgate, and that is an option, but some people can't lift these heavy bikes easily. Plus, as it goes down the road, it's going to bang up against the back of that tailgate, potentially scratching up the back of your truck, and I definitely don't want to do that. So I tested the bike in the bed, and it was definitely on the long side, meaning I had to keep the tailgate down at all times. So I turned the handlebars 90 degrees and tested it again, and still was a little bit too long. So have you ever had one of those projects you had to modify right from the beginning? That is where I'm at right now. And since the tailgate has to be down now, let's incorporate a way to minimize the bouncing it will do as you're going over bumps. So I have a feeling if I make the bike rack a little bit longer, we can kind of incorporate both into one setup. So I then started taking a bunch of measurements, the height, the width, the length, and all that, and then I realized, wait a second, I'm making this way too complicated. Let's keep this simple. Let's measure the length of the bike, where it sits in the bed, and that is how long our sideboard should be. And look at there, right at 6 feet. And to keep this simple and hopefully inexpensive, we're gonna build this out of 2x4s. And that looks like it's going to work out perfect. To hopefully make this a little bit easier and quicker, I moved the bike into my shop so we can take measurements a little bit easier. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to clean after my last project, so my floor is a little bit dirty. I mean, this is real life. First off, we need to squeeze these boards together and see the spacing we need for these tires, which is awesome. Right about 2 inches. That should make this really easy to measure. To hold these boards together, I've cut out 2 5-inch pieces. One of these is going to go right on the end. I'm just going to screw that into place. And then the second one will go somewhere back here once I figure out exactly where the back tire will rest. After looking this over, I realized I should probably add 2 more boards right here on the end. And that'll allow it to not only grab the tire on the bottom, but grab it in the front. And that should secure it in place. And to hold these in place, I'm just going to use some pocket screws. That 5-inch piece I cut out earlier for the tire, I'm actually going to use it now for the top of these 2 boards to secure them in place, and I'll just cut out another one later. I also drilled some pilot holes since we're real close to the end, that way it's less likely for it to crack. Okay, let's give this thing a test fit. Alright, the wood is a little bit tight. We can work with that though, but overall, I think it's going to work pretty well. It's standing on its own already. Just for the heck of it, I grabbed my second bike, which has the same exact size tire, and it fits in there almost perfectly. I guess this one is just a little bit more worn down. And after completing the first one, I built a second one almost identical, just slightly wider though for that front tire, because I prefer to ride bikes with friends and family. Now that these are built, it's going to be a little trial and error trying to measure everything up to fit to exactly this size of my bed, because I want to make sure that they're secured in the front and in the back to each other so they don't rock back and forth like that. After I got the bikes in place, I realized that the initial 5-inch blocks ahead right here on the top of each stand were just not going to work. So I removed those and I added a brace that goes all the way across, and that gives us a lot more strength. I next decided to add an additional brace to the front lower portion, and that makes sure everything stays square and nice and rigid. Looking at the back of our setup, these boards back here are quite loose, so I need to secure it across here to give it some more strength. And since these boards are not easy to get to the opposite sides, I think I'm just gonna use some pocket screws on another board, probably right about in there. Not only will this board give additional bracing, now I have the ability to store some stuff in the back of my truck like camping gear and not have to worry about it sliding out. With the frame now sturdy, it's time to actually attach it to the bed of your truck. Now every truck is a little bit different and you might have modifications to it. It just depends on how you want to do it, but just make sure it is definitely secured to your truck. In my case, I'm using a ratchet strap that goes from the top rail to the front of my bed, and that makes it nice and secure. Another option would be going around the legs of your frame and actually going through your wheel, just in between the spokes, and not only will that secure your frame in place, but it'll give extra support to your bike. Another option, if you do not want to attach your bike and your frame together with that strap, is to actually take a long bolt. This is an eye bolt, and you can drill a hole through your front legs, and then you can slide the bolt in and use a wing nut to easily get it on and off. And that'll not only keep your bike from rolling out, but it'll squish those tires and just keep it much more secure. With every truck being a little bit different, if your outer leg has way too much movement in it still, here's a good way to brace it. Just cut an additional piece that'll reach from the outside board then brace it against the inner wall. Another option with the supports that go across, they're heavy duty. For example, I'm sitting on the top of this 2x4 and it's nice and strong. You can add eye bolts or just heavy duty hooks. You can strap stuff to this and make this really easy and secure to hang stuff from, or just secure your loads in case you're going camping or whatever you want to use this for. And like I mentioned earlier, I could throw my camping gear back here and don't have to be worried about it sliding out easily. For that matter, I could always put a larger board on here to make it even more secure. Here's a little bit better look at it in the light. And a quick look at the front as well. It's about to rain here and I just got an idea. Now, if you were to make this board right here removable, you could always go and put a tarp over your bikes and have a little place to sleep as well. Oh, here comes the rain. Let me get the camera out of the way. And what I was trying to say before I got rudely interrupted by the rain was, with that tarp over the bikes, it'll actually give you a place to sleep if it does rain and kind of keep you out of the weather. Now, I'm sure there's a ton of ideas I didn't even think about for this setup. If you could think of any, please list those in the comments. That would be awesome. You can help me and everybody else. Otherwise, check out this next video.